Hello, everybody, and welcome to Up North and Personal, where I speak with Canadian talent and hear their stories. Our guests, yes, guests with an S, are known worldwide for their contribution to animation, working with some of the brightest minds out there, on top of being bright themselves. They've made a couple of TV shows like Bob and Margaret, Ricky Sprocket, created a few icons here and there, and I don't know, they got nominated for an Oscar or two and managed to nab one. So with all that said, it is an absolute honor to speak with writers, animators, Oscar winners, all-around creatives, Mr. David Fine and Mrs. Alison Snowden. Now, how was that for an intro?
That was amazing. Okay. I want you to do our telephone answering machine.
Yeah.
We'll talk about that later. But yeah, it is. It
Sorry,
is
I meant
so
to say
great
I meant to say voicemail. That really dates me, doesn't it?
No, that's okay. I say. Wait, what? What was the first thing you said?
I said telephone answering machine.
Oh, telephone answer. Yes,
With
yes,
those
that
little
does age you.
tapes.
I was like, voicemail is. People say voicemail is dead nowadays, but I still use voicemail. I still use fax, but telephone answering machine, that's pretty archaic. But yeah, it is great to finally get to speak with you guys after being an admirer of your work for so long, even when I didn't know that you made it. But yeah, it's quite an honor.
Oh well.
Thank you. It's lovely to speak with you too.
Yeah, appreciate what you did. The beautiful job you did on the Bob and Margaret. What would we call it? Overview documentary.
There were things we didn't even know about ourselves, or at least didn't remember. So it was really
It was very enlightening.
Made us feel good about ourselves
For a change.
for a minute.
Well, I'm glad, because, I mean, I had seen so many, well, look, there were so many different, they call them, like, video essays is a popular term that people use for those kinds of videos right now, and I wanted to see if anybody made a Bob and Margaret retrospective, because, I mean, I gave the people, like, 20-something years to make one, and I didn't see anything out there, so I thought, all right, fine, I'm just going to do it myself. I'll be the first, maybe the only guy to do it, but yeah, I couldn't have asked for any better outcome out of making that video and watching Bob and Margaret one faithful evening to get the opportunity to speak with you guys and have you guys so happy with what I did. So yeah, that's crazy how these things work sometimes. But first question I have for you guys is what sparked that part of your brain to say, I'm going to draw, I'm going to create stuff, and what were some of your earliest inspirations for art and animation?
Whoa. Well, I'd always been, at school or at anything, I was better at art and drawing. So I always had that bias, and also liked writing stories. I was, good at English and writing stories. So they were what I was best at, and then for some reason, I never quite know why I made these big jumps, but for some reason I thought I want to, make films. I'd like to, actually have my ideas and, in terms of films. So I first of all did a foundation after school with art, with all kinds of, ceramics and everything. And then went to university for graphic design, where you could actually experiment with animation. There wasn't really tuition. And that's when I first kind of did experimental movements and then that led, again, a huge leap to applying to film school, National Film and Television School, which was very hard to get into, I was told, but I sort of didn't think like that at the time. I just thought, even though I was very shy and insecure, I would just, I thought if you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the prize, really. So I just applied and got in. I had a fairly strong art portfolio. And then these, experimental little films, not really complete or anything. And I managed to get into film school. And my early influences really, at that time, were not, the typical Disney cartoons, but just wanting to tell stories really and have them turn them into films.
Mm-hmm.
And so
for you, David?
Yeah, for me, I started making films when I was quite young, like 13 years old. Super 8 camera and 16 millimeter. Had access to equipment in the school system that I was in Toronto, which was a great support because they had film courses, summer film courses that I took that had amazing equipment at the time, moviolas, which is pretty ancient now, but this was sort of professional gear, and Bolex 16 millimeter cameras that had stop frame. And I was just interested in filmmaking generally, but animation was a means of controlling everything and getting a film made, in your basement or whatever, without having to figure out how to get production values, because you could do things. I loved doing plasticine animation. That was actually the first thing I ever did was plasticine, because I like building stuff out of clay and making it move. And I got an opportunity to go to the National Film Board in Montreal when I was 17 for 3 months in the summer, and that was hugely influential to me. So I was making films in animation, a bit of drawing animation, but a lot of plasticine, and also live action films, documentaries, just anything. I just love telling stories and working in film. And I too applied to the National Film and Television School in London, just outside London, where Alison had applied. That's how we met. We were in the same year in 1980. Also you asked influences. At the time, I was really influenced by the films of the National Film Board of Canada. That sounds like, home team kind of cheering. But in fact, those short films at the time were quite unique because they were very mature, adult-oriented stories. And we didn't have adult animation. I mean, back then, the Flintstones was considered primetime adult animation. This was pre-Simpsons and everything. And I loved stories that were adult, like The Street, and at the time, Special Delivery, Why Me, and a lot of other stuff, which wasn't specifically for children, and was smart and funny and witty. And I thought, that's what I want to do. I just love that kind of thing. Like Alison, we love and appreciate Hollywood, Disney, Warner Brothers as kids, but it wasn't what inspired us directly to say that's what we want to do. And that's why our background for both of us is in filmmaking, and we've really had no specific animation training in our lives. We didn't go to animation school and learn animation. We just picked it up. We're inspired by other students whose work we'd seen. And for me, working at the National Film Board and learning from other filmmakers there, but we didn't take an animation course.
Interesting.
And then David, because we met at film school, and then he was showing me all these films, the ones he's listed, but there was also a film called Only Child.
Every Child.
Every Child. Every Child. Very different title, really, and different subject. And that really inspired me in terms of, the storyboarding and how to tell my student animation film at film school. And, as David said, we didn't really have any animation training, and I'd only just kind of begun in animation, but those films really influenced, the Second Class Mail, where it's kind of an ever-evolving, the storyboard morphs from one image to another. And, that was... So when you asked the influence, that was probably mostly it.
Every Child was directed by Eugene Fedorenko, and it was produced and written by Derek Lam, and it won an Oscar, actually.
Wow.
A brilliant film. If you have a chance to see it, it's on the NFB website.
Yeah, I'll definitely give that a look, because I've been watching a lot of the NFB shorts, like Black Fly. That's one of them, right?
Yeah, Chris Hinton.
I remember.
Yeah, wonderful film. Love his work.
That was I think that one made me scared of flies for life. Honestly.
It had that effect on a lot of people, I think. I'm never going to Northern Ontario.
I have a college professor who lives in North Ontario, and he has to deal with the black flies every single day. It's like, yeah, no, I don't envy you, buddy. But I do love that short. Next question. So, originally, I was going to ask you guys what inspired the look of Bob and Margaret, but I saw it in a number of things that you guys have done in the 90s. But is there anything in particular that was an influence on the style, like the big old noses or when characters have no mouths?
I'm not sure about the no mouths. I think that just came about from as soon as I put a mouth on, I always sort of internalize these characters, so you know what they're thinking, what they're doing, and somehow when I put a mouth on, it didn't have the meaning that I wanted. So unless it was being used, I'm making a point. I thought I'll just not have it, and I thought they looked better without it for some reason. I never really thought about it.
I think they looked better without mouths at the time, because when we were doing films, we didn't have lip sync. There was either narration or nothing, and no mouth meant the faces looked a little more lost, like
more poker faced.
Yeah, and adding a mouth gave some character that you sort of didn't want.
But we weren't. I wasn't thinking about it that much. Also, like, where do you place this mouth? Sometimes it's, that's too high, too low. It was just easy. You don't have the mouth. If you need it, then you worry about that. Like if they smile. So it wasn't such a conscious decision, really.
But I kind of do actually, I remember discussing it a little bit sometimes, because it would come up. When people were working with us, because they'd go, where's the mouth? And it's like, no, there's no mouth. And I kind of feel like it was a conscious decision to have a lack of expression. Mm-hmm. And then when characters were speaking, as they did for the first time for us in Bob's birthday, then of course they had mouths big time because they were speaking. And then in that case, you're saying what was our influence? The big nose thing, generally we were seeing a lot of films with big noses that we liked, like the work of Chris Hinton and Richard Condy, of course, and others that were, and a lot of other filmmakers at the NFB that just tended to do big noses.
It was in vogue. It was in vogue.
There was a big nose phase, yeah. And we liked it. We liked the big balloon on their face. It just seemed stupid looking. So we were influenced by that, and
I felt that it worked with our style, because we tried to make realistic characters. Like, a good example of that is Bob and Margaret, obviously, because they're just a couple. And we just thought people having these normal dilemmas or situations, but they look like clowns in a way, they look stupid, is funnier than if they would look more serious. Somehow it worked better with our comedy at the time.
Mm-hmm. I remember in when I showed the first episode of Bob and Margaret to my brother, and Margaret is crying and the tears are coming down her nose. And my brother's like, she kind of looks like a clown mixed with Marge Simpson, but I'm still feeling a lot of the emotion going on here. But I love it, and
that's what we want.
The whole no mouth thing, you guys familiar with the show Johnny Bravo, or you've heard of it?
Yeah.
There's the main character Johnny Bravo. Sometimes, not often, but sometimes he will just have no mouth. But in my busted mind, I always think that's hilarious, because it's almost like an apparition or a ghost, a little uncanny, but I love it when shows do that sometimes. And yeah, I love the big round nose thing. I have drawings of a bajillion different characters that I do, and I decided to add a little Bob and Margaret-esque nose on them. And if you guys would like to see it real quick.
Yes.
Let's see. So I have this little sheep character right here. I don't know how well you can see it, but her name is...
it's coming in now. Yeah. Nice.
Cute.
Yeah, from last year. I need to develop her a bit more, but she originally had a triangular nose, and then I decided to add a circular one after watching Bob and Margaret and thinking of Margaret's voice coming out of her. I think I like it.
She's got a more attractive neck than Margaret. In that she has one.
She has a neck.
Our characters are designed quite tubular, really. They're sort of sausages.
Well,
yeah, they are sausages on top of sausages.
Oh, because you say the mouth, but I'm also not quite sure where the head begins and ends either.
Yeah, like a little pop-up mole, like
fluid thing.
Like,
yeah, especially
little whack-a-moles.
When they have the clothing that's all sealed here, so that the head sits on their shoulders, like mine now. But if they ever undo their shirt or have their shirt off, as happens, then it's like you have to figure out how the head joins the.
They do look a bit, odd, like sausages. Sausages with arms.
Sausages, whack-a-mole people. But I love it. It's a style all its own. But let's see. Next question. So we're coming up on, speaking of Bob and Margaret, we're coming up on the show's 25th anniversary this June, and a whopping 30 for Bob's birthday, if you can believe that. But yeah, as of March 27th, someone notified me of this, the show, and I notified you of this, David. The show was airing again on Canadian TV on Adult Swim Canada, and what's hilarious about that is that it has a PG rating, no viewer advisory whatsoever, but everything that was in the original episodes have been kept intact. All the nudity, all the cursing and swearing and imagery, and I just think that's hilarious.
Well, we and maybe television's matured a little bit, so they're less concerned about that kind of thing. It's spilling over from streaming services because you'll watch TV shows on, obviously on Netflix or Disney or whatever, and there's just swearing in it, or nudity, just like as if it was a feature film, and that's kind of normalized that. And maybe in regular broadcast TV, they're sort of moving towards that model a little bit. I don't know.
I think it's more just because I've seen it with Bob and Margaret on a couple other places. It has like a child-friendly rating because I think they just look at it and they think, oh, it's so cute.
Yeah,
that's right.
So
big
many
noses.
And the dogs, they probably just catch a scene.
Yeah,
it
it's like, oh, look at this. This is fine. Yeah, because every other show on Adult Swim Canada has a viewer advisory, except for maybe like Bob's Burgers or something, and that's pretty tame. But yeah, it's just. I remember when I was doing a video for somebody, editing something, and it was an anime movie from like the 80s, and there were a lot of nudity and things intact in there, and I had to do more scrubbing for my Bob and Margaret video than I had to do for that anime, because I was like, oh wait, oh no, I can't show that, But Bob and Margaret had me more like, okay, where is this? Oh, there it is, there's one. Then the anime film.
And an interesting little quick side note on that was when it was broadcast 25 years ago. Oh my God. At first we got a lot of pushback from the broadcasters about toning it down and not having too much rude stuff or nudity. And then they suddenly had a brainwave and said, no, this is what's going to get it noticed and create, buzz. So they said, oh, more nudity, more racy stuff, more dogs crapping. Do it all. This is good. So that was fun that there was no hold barred on that.
Let's see. So I already introduced my brother to Bob and Margaret. And yeah, everything that he didn't remember a lot when he first saw it. We were like little children when it first aired in its heyday. And then when I showed him all the episodes, and then every time something shocking happened, like when Margaret cursed during the Friends for Dinner episode, his mouth was just agape, and he turned to me and was like, what? Did she just say that? I also showed that very same episode to my mom just like a week ago after pestering her about it, and she heard all the stories about me getting to speak with you guys and blah, blah, blah. So I was like, I want to show you this episode in particular before we see any more. You need to see this one. She loved it.
Nice.
It was so great. She's like, oh man, that was so good. And it's hard to get her to watch stuff because for as long as I can remember, she's always fallen asleep during movies and TV shows or when I read stories to her and things like that. So I was really hoping that she would stay awake throughout that whole episode, and she did, and I was like, oh, thank goodness.
So we should say, Bob and Margaret, you'll stay awake.
It won't put you to sleep. That'd be a great tagline. But there was also another case where, I don't know if you guys knew about this either, but someone left a comment on my Bob and Margaret video, and apparently when it aired on Adult Swim in Mexico, Latin American audiences got frustrated with it because that channel, well, yeah, Adult Swim was known for anime and action shows, and in Mexico, Bob and Margaret showed up on the thing, and all the teenagers were like, what is this? This isn't my action-packed anime. And the network caught on, they saw all these complaints, and they started messing with the viewers. And there's even an old promo where they say something along, roughly translated, it says, we're tired of you, hearing of you asking for anime. Everyone knows anime is on Toonami, which is the anime block they had. And it's like, if we hear one more complaint, we will substitute all anime on Toonami for Bob and Margaret. Coming up next, Bob and Margaret. And they would do marathons of Bob and Margaret and things like that just to get under people's skin. According to that person who said that.
That's hilarious.
And that's amazing. So, inspirations, I'm still on Bob and Margaret. There are other questions not pertaining to Bob and Margaret, but I just want to get all these out of the way. But is there I'd like to know some inspirations for some of the characters, whether they were inspired wholesale by someone you knew, an actor or celebrity, or even for a specific character's look or voice.
Do you mean, I just have to cough.
That's okay.
Allergies.
Sorry, allergies, yeah.
I'll leave this in. I'm leaving this in.
Are we talking about Bob and Margaret themselves, or just other characters in the episodes as well?
Just everybody. Bob and Margaret themselves, any notable characters you can think of.
I think we gathered, things from different people. Not all of it, not like saying this character is somebody, but those, just characteristics of personalities. And situations. There would often be situations we'd been in, like Friends for Dinner, but we'd change them a bit. But it would inspire, the fact that there was this game, and it brought out these, situations.
Yeah.
Something like that really happened in our lives, but not exactly.
It'd be something that would be. Something that would shock us or surprise us or whatever, and then that would somehow come out in an episode. But
a lot of characters were inspired directly from people we knew, but not literally exactly, but with used character traits. And it's important to add our own selves as well, our own fallibilities and insecurities and anxieties we would exploit. In either in Bob and Margaret or in other characters.
Yeah, anything was fair game.
Yeah, I mean, Bob's cynicism about things is probably, something that I align with. Maybe, he can be a bit of an asshole, and I'm not going to say I'm a bit of an asshole, but there's tendencies where, you can kind of say something stupid and regret it and whatnot. And probably, the same for Margaret.
Oh yeah, like fear, that I did an episode that I think stopped being screened after 9/11 called Holiday, and quite rightly.
Like I said, it is actually on adult. I saw it on TV. I recorded it, and I'm going to show my mom that episode. It's still airing.
Oh, good.
This was pre 9/11, but there was always these threats of things, and I was a very anxious flyer. So really what Bob goes through are his thoughts, and then the worst nightmare there on the plane, that was all things that would be not necessarily that I was put. And also watching like Tarantino, Pulp Fiction, and these really violent things. For some reason this was because I was a bit against, like, actually not Tarantino, but all this violence everyone's watching, and I was thinking...
No, it was because that one character in Holidays was inspired from Pulp
but then
Fiction.
That's the other way around, because I'm writing characters and being inspired by that. But it's some reason it was cathartic to make something really violent, even though I was a bit against it all, which again doesn't really make any sense, but it felt good. And
I think in Holiday, the violence. Bob is the one that's anxious and having to take medication in order to calm down and is worried about things, and Margaret is the sort of together one that's saying, calm down, it's fine.
That would normally be him. So
Yeah.
we reverse roles in that, really.
Uh-huh.
So that's what you could do as well. That's right. You could put your personality in the other person.
Well, we wanted to kind of go against type as well, so that Margaret wasn't always the one that was nervous and anxious. And you mentioned earlier Friends for Dinner, and in that case, it was Bob that was nervously trying to kind of smooth things over and be nice, and Margaret was getting more and more pissed off until she explodes. So that was we liked the idea that Margaret was a bit nervous sometimes and kind of intimidated in situations, but would also be very powerful when she felt the need.
Which was a bit me, because, I can be polite, but then maybe I'm less patient than David. Like, if people would really annoy me, it's not such a stretch. I wouldn't go that far, but I have walked out on situations because I was so angry with what was happening.
That's
and then
true.
the fun thing at that time, because instead of writing together, because it was just a short film, we could both write our own scripts. And yet we could also story edit on each other's. That was great. But what was great was having a notebook, because you're saying what inspired it. Right? We'd have a notebook, so anything that would happen or trigger some idea, we'd write all that down. Like every day could be anything, could be an inspiration of a moment in a script or the idea. So that was fun.
Interesting. Yeah, that's great. So let's see. So this is a question for Alison now. So leading into that, was it nerve-wracking or weird voicing Margaret, or because it was one of your first big things for TV in terms of voiceover, if I'm correct in that? Or was it pretty smooth sailing getting into voiceover for the show on top of being co-creator and voice director and everything that came with that?
It was mixed. I never liked the sound of my own voice because I'd hear it on my answering machine, as we call it, and it sounds high and pitchy and awful. No wonder no one takes me seriously. And with that voice, we'd actually cast a different actress who was good but didn't have that vulnerability. And then the commissioning editor on it, she voiced, she wasn't crazy about that voice suiting the character, and we also weren't sure. So, and a producer friend of ours, actually Derek Lamb, said, "Why don't you do it, Alison?" And at first I thought, well, I don't know. I mean, I am that character really, because I do stutter and I am nervous. And I think by that time, even though I would normally be so afraid, I was so tired of trying to cast the voices and trying to get people to do what I'd written or what David had written. You're not doing it right. You don't know anything about anxiety or panic. And for the short film, you had to believe that she would sort of have a panic attack in that situation. Otherwise, why wouldn't she just tell Bob what was going on? It's because she just can't think. She doesn't know what to do, So I would do that in certain situations. So in a way it was a relief. I thought, no, I'll go for it. David was more nervous because he couldn't be very objective about his, partner wife doing the voice, because he probably found it quite irritating as well. And he was always like, "Oh, I can hear your nose," or "That's too high," or whatever. He's very conscious of it. So that was a bit hard. But then once, we got good feedback and we got used to it, I think it was fun. It was hard work.
Well, when
And it was fun.
when we did the series with multiple episodes, this is after the short had been successful, so it was less of an issue that you were doing the voice then, because it was
Yes.
like already confirmed that really worked well in the short. It was just when we did the short, we tried casting with professional actors, and because they're professional, and actors tend to have self-confidence because you have to be an actor to put yourself out there, and so they just couldn't get that nervous, panicky energy that Alison was referring to, as well as Alison. So she kind of nailed it, and it worked really well.
I can also
I
do
think so.
nervous chickens.
I've seen that one. I've seen that short on your website. Yeah,
A very
you did
limited
that very
range
well.
of acting that I do, really.
But yeah, I think it's such a unique voice for Margaret, and yeah, when I showed that episode Friends for Dinner to my mom, I remember at one point Margaret just goes, "Oh, Bob, you're so stupid," and my mom immediately started just like parroting things Margaret would say, and I was like, "Oh, that's great. I love it. Margaret is so great." The voice is great. I was critical. I'm critical of my own voice as well, and I mean I started doing YouTube stuff when I was like 16, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I sound awful." I've only gotten really good at it, I would say, in the last couple of years or so, but yeah, we all have that. Oh man, this doesn't sound great, but it sounds pretty good. I like it.
I think just as an aside, I think your voice is great. I love the way when you did the narration on the Bob and Margaret thing. It just had a lovely, upbeat,
Lovely
comedic
levity.
quality that was nice.
Oh, I'm honored that you think that. Yeah, lots of people say I have like main character kind of voice
Yeah.
to my how I speak and things like that, like chirpy main character going on an adventure thing. But yeah, I'm happy that people get that vibe from me, because I just hear me, and me is like whatever. But yeah, I'm glad you like it. Now, speaking of voices, interesting question. What are Bob and Margaret's dialects? As an actor, I like to try to dissect different accents, and this show has quite a few, but what would you guys say their dialects are most reminiscent of?
Well, I'm from Nottingham, so
The Midlands, England.
Midlands dialect. And then Andy.
But it's softened because you don't have
now, but not when we did Bob and Margaret.
It still isn't. When you go to Nottingham, people
I see.
sound
Yeah.
a lot more stronger
there's a
accent
range,
than Alison's, but essentially.
And then Andy's from London.
London,
Yeah.
little bit. He's got a little bit of a working class, little bit of cockneyness to him, not so posh.
Yeah.
But it's London.
Yeah, I could definitely, when I was watching the show, I recognized, how they talked, and it's like, no, they say certain words a little differently from each other, and I need to know, just, what these dialects are, so I can study them, and just, because I love studying various accents and all that stuff, so that's pretty good. And this is a question for William and Elizabeth. Alison, did you do the barking noises for William and Elizabeth?
I think
I did.
David did.
Yeah.
But there were
You
other
did?
noises, so I don't know who. I think
all
David
that.
did it. He's got the bigger jaw.
That's the
It's
only
gonna
part I
come
had.
out.
I had
It's gonna
two parts in Bob and Margaret. I did the dog noises, and there was one episode with a bicycle delivery guy wearing a helmet, and it just that was it. That was my voice acting.
You should have got an Oscar for that, because that was great.
Thank you.
I never would have known it was you.
And the Oscar goes to... Hurry up! Bob's birthday, Alison Snowden and David Fine. Congratulations!
So, I know you guys were taken aback from winning an Oscar, no less hearing it come out of the mouth of Bugs Bunny, which is just kind of like, Bob's birthday, the winner is... but when Bob and Margaret proved to be a hit, what was the atmosphere like at the time, circa 1998 and 99, and what was something that you saw from fans of the show, to show their love for it, that made you go, okay guys, calm down, it's just a show about a husband and wife?
At the time, the big deal on TV was The Simpsons, of course, and that's what inspired this boom in getting more adult animated shows on TV. And so we were in the right place at the right time with doing a short that was about a couple that a lot of people thought this could be a series, and we're looking for more series to on the heels of The Simpsons. And so, it just felt good to get that much support for doing what we wanted to do. And we were a little bit selfish in the way we approached producing it because we felt that the short was quite successful and we wanted to be true to it. So we stuck by our guns to make the series really have the same character and authenticity that the short did. There was comments from potential partners that said, well, can we give them a family? Because that's more, that'll sell better if they have kids. Maybe they go and have kids. We said, no, their whole issue is that they don't have kids. They have surrogate kids in these dogs. So we wanted to stick to that. And then there was the idea that, maybe they live in the US because that would be easier to sell than they're from London or, that seemed weird. We said, no, we're just, if the show's going to fail, we want it to fail because it fails, not because we changed it up and we go, why did we do that? Because the short was successful and we wanted to stick to it. So, people, the company we worked with, which was Nelvana, very generously gave us complete creative control to keep it exactly how we wanted. So that was important to us and allowed us to make the series we wanted to make. And we just thought we wanted to see if what was successful with the short worked in a TV series. And so it was a lot of fun to be able to do that and work in the case of the series with a huge team of people that were really contributing brilliant stuff and supporting our vision and going places that allowed us to write in a way that we may not have been able to if we were animating the whole thing because of our limitations.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys stuck to your guns because everything I love about Bob and Margaret I can see in the short and vice versa. Great stuff. Good. Yeah, I'm glad you guys stuck to your guns on that one. And next question. I'm fascinated by international projects that make things look easy, like for writing and voiceover. For my own stuff, I have to communicate with folks in the UK and China, and somehow we managed to get our stuff done. But what were some of the biggest challenges you guys faced, this being a Toronto and UK production, and what did you have to do to overcome them, and anything that would be easier now?
I think the biggest... are we talking about the short film?
No, the series.
Oh, no, just the main series.
Oh, the series, okay.
Were you going to say
no,
something?
it's to do with the short film and carrying the artwork on the aeroplane.
Oh, I think
But
Malik's talking about
the series.
Whatever.
I can't remember there being issues.
No, there were because at the time we were just in the beginnings of internet. When we started making Bob and Margaret, we were getting design samples from Nelvana by fax. I mean, it transitioned to email, but and using online, but online was very slow, dial up, and so what's so great now is all the technology and how fast you can exchange things around the world as if you're in the next room, really. So the restrictions were, getting... Nowadays, when animation is done overseas, the scenes come back in full digital. And if you want to make tweaks to them, just change the timing, then you have a local crew that opens that file, makes those adjustments, and the scene's done. Back then, it was all drawn by hand on paper, scanned into a computer, and then colored, and then composited and put together. So making changes had to be done overseas again, and it was quite a to-do and quite time-consuming. And there were lots and lots of mistakes. We had episodes that would come back where almost every scene had a note about a mistake or a character that's popping off or the composition being wrong or whatever. And these days it's so much easier to control that. And it's interesting because at the time there was a lot of talk about the loss of jobs locally because of overseas. And what it's done is, in the end, is it's created a lot more employment everywhere. Like you have the employment overseas for those people, which is great. But there's also now crews, large crews locally that can handle either animating those scenes or tweaking them or doing whatever, or doing the layouts that they open the files. So the whole digital process and the internet has made things a whole lot easier.
I would say, because like I have a friend who's working on a pilot right now, and he's in Texas, and I got another guy in New York, and I mean it's taken a while to come out, but it was all just done in our bedrooms, and it's almost done, and it's like this is insane how we get to do this, and
it's insane
to make these
the
things
technology
work.
The fact that we can do stuff on our home computer, like what we're doing now, and record professionally and produce stuff that is can be broadcast quality, is just unbelievable. You could never do that before.
I know. It's like I can't imagine doing an interview like this in '98. Not happening. But so let's see. Speaking of, for the first season of Bob and Margaret, there were 2 Torontonian voice actors in there, Wayne Robson and God, I forget her name. I wrote down the wrong name, but yeah. You know the person I'm talking about?
Of course. And my mind goes blank because I got this thing with names where I just, someone we're talking about.
And it was a long time ago.
I know, but not
Jane Eastwood.
Thank you.
That's
okay,
it.
Hold
That's
on.
it.
I want you to edit that out because that's embarrassing. You say, what were the names of this? I say it was
Jane Eastwood.
I'm going to leave this. I'm leaving this in. No.
All right. Jane Eastwood. She's brilliant. Anyway, we love Jane Eastwood. And
Jane Eastwood and Wayne Robson.
And they were both really good. And we directed them long distance because at the time we were in London doing the voices and they were in Toronto. So it was all, that was done in, despite the technology at the time, we were able to actually have this very costly link up so that we could hear them and so forth in a studio. But they were great.
Yeah, they were fantastic. Because when I hear about like how the cross-regional voice casts did their thing back in the day, I always see the letters ISDN, things like that. Did you guys basically do that?
It was an ISDN link. Thank you for reminding me. And the studios charged a fortune to set one up and do it. Now you just do it on your laptop.
Just get on your laptop, put a blanket over your head, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
For the most part.
And they were fun because they were sort of an amalgamation of all the Canadian visitors that would come to us in London and be who they, we were making fun of those people, including ourselves, as always.
It's okay. I liked being represented like that. That was really cool. And like I said in the video before, after I saw that episode with my brother, our cousins who we hadn't seen in years showed up out of the blue. And thankfully it was a much nicer interaction having seen them. But it was so weird. It's like, dude, didn't we just see that Bob and Margaret where the cousins came up out of nowhere? But that's you can't write this stuff, or maybe you can. But let's talk about another show that you guys worked on, Ricky Sprocket's Showbiz Boy. Now, full disclosure, I haven't watched it, but I do recall seeing it when it was on. I saw promos for it all the time on Teletoon, which is, if you can believe it, Teletoon is dead now. They shut down and turned into Cartoon Network, which is kind of a shame, but I will say, for Ricky Sprocket, what was it like going from stuff primarily for adults to a more family-friendly series, or was the transition pretty standard for you guys?
It was a show that we'd had on the back burner for years. I think even maybe before Bob and Margaret. Like we just
maybe just the general.
We were sort of
concept
inspired with the concept of pastiching Hollywood through the eyes of a child star who's a big star despite being pretty stupid looking. That's a theme, stupid looking characters. Mm-hmm. It was our love for movies, really, wasn't it?
I love for movies and just a character that was just so sort of positive but then, you know, things would happen to him. We just thought that sort of... I remember we watched an old series called Little Johnny Everything. You remember?
Yes.
We loved it. You won't
UPA.
know that. It's a UPA. Like, Little Johnny Everything. It was just so ridiculously positive. So it was sort of a bit of an inspiration.
Well, yeah, because we didn't want to go for the child actor who was just a really cynical, jaded brat. We wanted him to be a genuinely nice, normal guy, and his parents treat him like any other kid. It's like, you know, his father says, you know, you may be the biggest movie star in the world, but you still got to clean your room, boy.
Yeah, and they just don't get it at all.
So which we thought was fun because they keep him grounded and normal, and he's okay with that because he just wants to be a normal kid as well.
Mm-hmm. Keep him grounded, and he also gets grounded.
Yes,
yeah,
yes.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm clever. I'm very clever.
And then, yeah, of course, we love movies, so it was an excuse to pastiche all these genres. So
yeah, there was a 2001 A Space Odyssey pastiche. There was horror movie pastiches, and
of course the same actress was in those.
In
Ricky Sprocket in the space one, Jane Eastwood, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, Jane Eastwood is his mom.
And
yeah,
the dad, his dad
is the
Jeff Lumby. That's what I saw.
Yeah,
different guy.
Similar kind of approach. Yeah.
Yeah, I know half of these guys from like the Red Green Show, so it was kind of cool hearing them and stuff.
Yeah, they were great to work with. One of the most fun parts about a TV series is recording the voices.
Yeah, so, yeah, which actually leads me into my next question, because, Ricky Sprocket is a show that had a bi-coastal cast in Vancouver and Toronto, but how do you guys get the go-ahead for a cast from a certain region or two different places at once? Because I'm sure some studios would be like, no, you get one cast from one province, but how do you guys get to do that?
Sorry, how do we get to do, like...
How are we allowed to?
Yeah, do you guys get to pick where you get your casts from, or...
No, the province wasn't an issue. It was just, you know, in terms, when we're looking for, like with Ricky Sprocket, in order to maintain the Canadian content for tax credits and finance, as long as it was Canada, that was fine.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because I'm like, there's some new shows coming out right now where like the one show's being done for Cartoon Network right now, and the guy decided to use a cast from the UK, and I was like, you can just decide that? And it's like, yeah, I just decide, yeah, we're in Hollywood, but I was getting bored of it, so I decided to use an all-British voice cast. Brian George is in there too, and a couple of other LA guys, but it's mostly UK guys, and it's like, I'm surprised at that. It always blows my mind to see like what you guys can do and the decisions that you mean make.
That in that show there were an LA-based show that used British voices?
Yes, there's a current show right now made by it's called Unicorn Warriors Eternal, made by Gendy Tartakovsky.
Oh right,
creator of Samurai Jack.
So their funding model is not based on tax credits at all. So they don't have it. It's immaterial where they're hiring crew for the most part. Whereas in Canada, the funding model is based on encouraging employment and production to happen locally. And certainly like in BC, if you produce out of Kelowna, for instance, you get even higher tax credits than if you do out of Vancouver, because they want to encourage developing the regions. And so there are now animation companies in Kelowna that are producing animation and getting a better tax deal because of it. But then you create
limitations sometimes.
Well, I wasn't going to say limitations. I was going to say you create an industry in another area.
Sorry. Always looking on the downside.
So I have to ask some questions about you guys' work at your history with Aardman and how you got involved with Shaun the Sheep, and so IMDb has you guys listed as series deviser, which sounds a lot more diabolical than just developed by.
Yeah, no, Nick's a really good friend of ours. We were good chums at film school. He was in the same year. So we were sort of a little gang of three, for the most part. And so therefore he asked us to help develop that character, because obviously it was successful in the feature film, into a series, and they were giving us some parameters and what they were thinking. And I think he trusted us to do it because we had similar sensibilities and we knew his work so well. So yeah. we helped develop that, and then unfortunately we couldn't get further involved because we were getting some opportunities with Ricky Sprocket.
Yes.
And so we felt we couldn't take on that series. We were also going to move over to Canada at that time. So yeah, so we didn't go further with it, but we enjoyed helping develop that and new characters for it.
But because those Shaun the Sheep and Ricky Sprocket came out within like a few months of each other. So I was like, how did this go about? How did you guys work on both? But now I know.
Yeah, we were working on it, and then they transitioned into production, and we left the development. The development period was a long time. It was like, I think it was like 18 months or something. We were working on it. They were trying to figure out their demographic. They would take pitch materials to broadcasters and get feedback, and we would get, no, we want to like age it down a little bit because so that it's more, oh no, we got to age it up again, make it more clever and a little more edgy, and so we'd keep adjusting and until they found their place.
And that reminds me of a question you asked about the transition from adult TV shows to kids. That was something that was sort of a surprise to us, because when we were writing Ricky Sprocket, it was the same thing. Oh, we want to age it down. Oh, then you'd be right. Oh, now we need to age it up. There's health concerns because Ethel, the little sister, was all about candy. She was very deadbeat. She wanted candy. Yeah. And you can't do that. At that time, there was this feeling you can't encourage, bad eating habits with children. So we had to give her, was it a bowl of cherries or something?
Yeah, well, I mean, Nickelodeon,
effect,
I believe Nickelodeon was being sued for encouraging obesity or something because of the advertising. I can't remember. I shouldn't quote me, it was exactly that, but I know that there was a court case where a broadcaster was being sued for, effectively encouraging obesity. And so they all got like, oh, we can't do that.
Yeah, because in the pilot, of course, she had a lot of candy. That's what she always wanted, candy. And then we had to change that. So, there was more rules. Whereas with Bob and Margaret, we had free reign. We were very lucky. I think we mentioned earlier, we had really free reign. Mm-hmm. I remember it, when we were talking about production, people were talking about story arcs. And we were so naive at the time, with no experience with, series. We were like, what's a story arc? And really we just made, multiple short films where they encountered different situations, which I think people, in live action, I've seen some shows are starting to do that now. But at the time, I guess that didn't happen. So it was always about them trying to, expand their social circle or some new experience or whatever, but there wasn't particularly a story. They never learned it. We always thought characters don't really learn anything. You try, you always get back to where you were anyway, and things like that. So,
yeah, I really liked that about the show in particular. How when you think they learn a lesson and then they just go back to being themselves. And it's more common than you think in real life. So I liked how it hit that sense of realism there. Quick little thing, I have to bring up Peppa Pig real quick, and because I remember, I saw how big it got over the last few years or so. I remember watching it back in like 2004 as a 9-year-old on TVO Kids, and thought it was just a regular old show. And then I saw people in the US and the UK go on about it like 10 years later. And I was like, really? that little show from forever ago? What's the big deal? But yeah, it's crazy to find out that you guys had your stamp on it too. Your daughter, Lily Snowden Fine, was the original voice of Peppa Pig. It's just kind of mind-blowing to me.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-blowing to us that show. I mean, it got successful because it is a fabulous show, but that doesn't necessarily mean that things work out that way. So we're thrilled that it did. The creators are good friends of ours, and so we're happy for them. They're very successful with it, and we're proud of the work that Lily did. And Alison wrote some early episodes as well, and directed Lily's voice.
Well, because she couldn't read at the time. She was only 5. And, we were good friends with Mark. Again, we met him at film school. We were good friends there. So when he was making the pilot, he asked if Lily would, he probably was thinking about Lily a little bit because she was that exact age, and she was quite the personality, very outgoing and fun. And she had a nasally sort of voice. And so, yeah, when they made the pilot again with a regular, an actress, like an adult, and it didn't have quite the charm they wanted. So then they tried Lily for the pilot, and then it just really worked. But she couldn't read, so I would really go in the booth with her. Try and get her to stay still because she had a lot of energy. That was hard. Like kicking the mic or something. And also I'd read the lines so she could mimic me because they're excellent mimics, children. So
of course.
That's how we did it.
So when I was checking you guys' website for research, I saw the other work section and it made note of something. Now, I won't say what it is because this is a family-friendly channel that I upload this to. But all I'll ask is that true? If you know what I'm talking about?
Are you thinking about the pink KomKommer?
I have no idea what... It's adult. It said like, oh, we got little sketches, and then, it said pornography.
Oh,
yeah.
That would be pink KomKommer, wouldn't it?
I would think so, unless it's the nudity of Bob and Bob's...
No, there was...
Marv Newland, who's, well-known animation director, producer here in BC, he had this idea to make a film based on a soundtrack that he came up with all weird sounds on it, and asked, I can't remember how many filmmakers, to interpret that sound into a pornographic animated short, like just a few minutes long. So he asked us to be part of that. So I think it's pretty innocent what we did.
Yeah, there's full frontal nudity, but nothing...
It's all suggestion, but nothing, that would deeply...
impair a child.
Yeah.
Well, I might have to go search for that and see it myself. But
I think it's online somewhere.
What was it called again?
Pink KomKommer with K's. KomKommer.
Pink KomKommer. Okay. Let me just write that down real quick.
Is there not a link on the website? Maybe not.
I'm not sure. Maybe there is. Maybe I just didn't look hard enough. But I'll find it eventually.
There's lots of pornography in the whole film because some animators...
If you're looking
took
for
it
that,
very
is that
seriously.
advice?
Well, just to warn you.
Oh, I see.
So they were all very rude, but we thought we'd have more fun with it, with suggestion.
And big noses.
And badminton.
Yeah.
I think we've got
big noses and badminton.
And
I'm
a
sold.
picnic.
It was a little Ken Russell-ish, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So let's see. So what is an average day like for you two now, if I may ask?
Oh gosh.
Oh.
It's a little quiet right now. We're working on little projects, personal things we do. Not heavily into anything right now. We've been developing a show recently that may or may not happen, and that's with another producer that came to us.
We've done a couple of commercials. Well, we made the short film Animal Behaviour, of course, and we made that from home because we can do everything pretty well now on the computer, except for post-production. And we did some commercials early on.
Did some
And
writing.
I mean, we've always worked mostly from home, so that's usually our base. And if we're in production on a TV show, then of course we'll go into a studio.
Let's see. Oh, another question recently just came into my head. There was a song that Margaret sang in Bob and Margaret, and I'm wondering if it's a real song or not, or something you made up. She goes like, "The sun is shining, it's a beautiful day. The birds
Now
are singing."
made it up.
You made that up?
Happy. Yeah,
I'm
and to be
feeling
just
gay.
ridiculously hopeful.
I was like, is this an old song somewhere? I tried Googling it. I think the lyrics were just too...
Too sweet.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're very sweet. I loved it.
Yeah.
I like it. But now I got
I
that
can't
off
remember
my
which
chest.
episode that was in. Was it when she was falling for a young dentist or something? Or
There were 2 episodes where it actually showed up where, yeah, it was in that one with the young dentist fellow. And then the other one where she was on the radio, My Foot Hurts, and then she was the only one in there, and there was like an emergency radio thing, and it failed on her. And then she just starts singing, "The sun is shining, it's a beautiful day," as pure anarchy is going on outside the radio station. And I just died laughing. That's great. That's great. I love hearing that it's just a little original ditty that you came up with.
I don't get royalties.
Gotta look into that.
So let's see. What are some shows or movies you guys have seen in recent years that have inspired you, or you just thought were really, really cool?
You mean like just in the broad sense, or in terms of inspiring work?
I guess inspiring work, or if there's any examples of just the broad sense, that works too.
We just like anybody else, we've loved a lot of films by Wes Anderson and what other?
My mind goes blank.
Yeah,
it's
I know.
like being asked what's your favourite.
Breaking
Song
Bad
or
was a great
something.
TV series. Too many things.
TV's gotten, maybe because of COVID and Netflix and all this.
Well, all the streaming, the investment.
Some TV shows of such high production, they're almost better written than movies these days as well. So I don't know everything is directly inspiring work as much as just entertaining, isn't it?
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah. I mean, over the years, in the past, a lot of things that have inspired, like we said before, a lot of short animation films and things. And The Simpsons in itself was very influential because of the way it went into adult themes and things that we hadn't seen in television animation before.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Because, and next question, speaking of weird questions, like, what is your favorite food? Just a weird little question, if you guys have one.
Oh, we like lots of food.
I
I love Maltesers.
Is that a food?
Yes, I put it in my mouth. That's food.
I brought it up in the show in Bob and Margaret, Maltesers.
British Maltesers, because they have better chocolate on them.
We're big fans of
Balls full of Maltesers.
Indian food.
Indian food. I love lots of food. We love cooking.
Made homemade pizza last night.
Yeah, potatoes in any form.
I was gonna say, there's a lot of that in Bob and Margaret. There's a lot of times where they eat Indian food, so that was probably.
Yeah, we love Indian food.
And that's interesting because I'd never had Indian food in my life until I moved to London, and then it's one of those things where I just smelt it and thought, oh my God, I've never smelt something so amazing. I need to have this. I need to eat this food that I've never had. This is way back when 1980. And was all over it, and so wanted to learn how to cook it and make it at home and everything. So it's one of our favorites.
Spaghetti bolognese.
There's that too.
Always good.
Oh, that's great. So let's see. So I think that's pretty much all the questions, but do you guys have any questions for me? No pressure.
I know you're in Niagara Falls, right?
Yeah.
Do you go look at those falls a lot?
I mean, it's just running water at this point for me. It's like, oh, I have that at home. If I want to see running water, I'll turn on the faucet, honestly.
Just a miniaturized version.
Yeah, that's a good
You
answer.
could put little rocks in there. Yeah.
But whenever I have friends coming in from like Toronto or something, I'll be like, okay, let's go see the falls. Let's go over to like Clifton Hill and hit the arcades and things like that. But yeah.
Oh, the arcades. I used to go there when I was little, and there was like a magic store and Ripley's Believe It or Not and all that stuff.
Ripley's is still there.
Is it really?
Yeah, believe it or not.
Believe it or not. That's right.
But yeah.
So what are you doing with your career? Like, you're doing this stuff. You're obviously interested in animation, and is that manifesting in your own work? Are you developing things, or your drawings look sophisticated? What are you going to do with it? How are you going to monetize this? How are you going to get a career? I sound like your father.
I know, right? That's the one thing that I need to just jumpstart, because like you guys, I'm a creative myself, if that wasn't completely obvious. Like, I'll show you a couple of my other drawings, like, after the interview, if you guys have the time. But, yeah, I want to make my own series, too. Like, I have so many ideas in my head, developing different characters and stories, seeing what shows from the past and the present have been doing with their things, and thinking about how to apply those certain things to my characters. I would like to voice a bunch of my characters as well, and just be in there in the thick of it. I used to want to be an animator, but then I realized, like, no, I'm probably more of a story guy and a designer and maybe a producer, things like that. I want to be in there in the day-to-day, coming up with all the ideas and things like that. And like I said, my friend is working on a pilot right now, and he's coming out with that, and he's gotten some people who have been working on some crazy stuff in the industry, and he has less of an install base and things than I do, and he's just doing it. So it's inspiring me to just, you know what, even if nothing becomes of this, or if no one picks it up, just do something. I want to do something with one of my sets of characters, and who knows where that could lead. I remember my mom said when she saw when I told her you guys won an Oscar for Bob's birthday, it's like, you know what, you should make your own short film and then submit it to the Oscars. And I'm like, I don't think it's that easy, but I see what you're getting at. In a sense,
it kind of is that easy. It's not, like, if you make your own film, you try and do something that you think people would like to see, that has a story, has some meaning, is maybe funny, or just touches people in a certain way. Enter it into festivals, get it out there, get it seen. If it's good, because it's not to assume it would be, but hopefully it would be. And if it's good, it gets accepted at some festivals, and then maybe it wins a prize at one or two festivals. You get to go to these festivals, you meet people. Then it wins a prize at a festival that gives it qualification to be entered into the Oscars, and you entered into the Oscars, and who knows? So, that's what happens. So just do stuff and get it out there and try.
Yeah, that's what I want to do. Like, currently I'm just doing sketches and assorted sketches and uploading them online wherever I see fit. But I know that I want to do more and that I can do more. Even though I'm already crazy busy as is, there's just a part of my brain that's just like, keep going. It's like, you're not doing enough. But that's just, the life of an artist, as I'm sure you guys are well familiar about.
We didn't have a straight career plan from the beginning, where we said we're going to make short films, then we're going to do TV series, and then we're going to do this or that. It was just a whole bunch of just trying stuff and finding ourselves in this situation. People say, oh, we want you to do this. Oh, okay. So. And
when we, did when we did Bob's birthday, because it was so personal in a way, like, very familiar territory for us, the stories and everything, that suddenly that was a breakthrough. So you just have to find your voice, or something that just really inspires you, so that it all comes out. You know, because if you're trying to do something like something you see, but you can't totally relate to that or draw from your own experiences, I always think that's a bit harder. Whereas they sort of write themselves a little bit once it seems like familiar ground, because it's quite cathartic, really. Like some of those shows we did really release, you know, because some things were quite annoying. So it was fantastic to just get it all out in an episode and make fun of something.
Well, that's great. I think that's great advice for just anybody trying to get into this and just any aspiring artists out there. But yeah, this has been an amazing chat. This is just how I close out the show for the people listening at home. But yeah, it has been an amazing chat. Again, I have the little frame of the Bob and Margaret cell that you guys sent.
Beautiful job.
Right here. And I haven't put it up yet because I'm lazy. That's full disclosure. But this is, again, I just wanted to have you guys see this. And yeah, it is amazing. When I got this framed at like my local Michael's, they're like, oh, what is this for? And I told them the whole story and they're like, oh my goodness, what? That is insane. It's like
nice.
So it's a great conversation starter. And yeah, it's so great to finally get to chat with you guys. And if anybody listening at home wants to see what these guys are up to, there is snowdenfind.com, right? And is there anything else that you guys would want to plug?
I think that's the main place to go to see, links to our films and everything we've done. So it's like the one-stop shopping kind of deal.
Yeah. Everything that you would want to know is right there at snowdenfind.com. And I'm just going to say goodbye to the folks listening at home. Thanks for listening, everybody. And we'll see you next time on this Up North Impersonal show that I'm happy to do. Later, everybody.
I like that's a nice title for a show, Up North and Personal. That's funny.